Terrifying images of the cursed Martian landscape revealed by citizen scientists before they vanish into the abyss. The images flooded the screen like blood spilling over the edge of a dark, broken heart. Faces twisted, ghostly figures carved into the rocks of Mars stared back with hollow eyes that seemed to pulse with an otherworldly life. Lily felt shivers dance down her spine. They were too human, too eerie. The thrill of discovery twisted in her gut. Could it be real? Were these the remnants of something not just extraterrestrial but dangerous? She had to show her Dad as she rushed to find him. The thin walls of their cramped house creaked under the weight of heavy silence, almost like they didn't want her to disrupt the eerie stillness that had settled over Red Springs. Her father had slipped into a haze, the kind that lingered since he lost his job at the garage. Shadows hunched in the corners of each room, holding tightly to secrets that made her skin crawl. Had it only been a few days since the dusty old neighborhood felt safe? Now, it felt like the walls themselves were closing in on them. Lily burst into the living room, where her father sat in a dim light, staring blankly. "Dad! Look at these!" She thrust the images in front of him. But instead of excitement or curiosity, dread twisted his features. His breath quickened, eyes glistening like a deer caught in headlights. "Lily, put that away," he said hoarsely. The anxiety flickering across his face felt familiar. It echoed the whispered fears that drifted from their neighbor, Hank, a former astronaut whose stories of government cover-ups and shadowy figures sent chills down her spine. "Dad, are you scared?" she pressed, the words clawing their way out. He averted his gaze, refusing to meet her eyes. The flicker of a storm loomed outside, heavy clouds twisting like restless spirits in the night. That evening, as her father trudged into a late shift, panic crept closer. The nearby houses loomed like watching sentinels, their windows staring like empty eyes. Shadows stretched longer, blurring into nightmarish shapes, whispering and wheezing in the chilling wind. The neighborhood's familiar faces morphed into something almost predatory, watching her, waiting. As sleep evaded her, Lily's phone buzzed violently an anonymous message. "They're watching. The curse has come for you. The abandoned facility holds the answers." Her heart raced, pounding in her chest like a warning bell. A curse? Something dark was lurking, and the comfort of sleep warped into a fight or flight response. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Unearthing the dark past held by Red Springs became her obsession, her escape from a life teetering on the edge. Terrifying dreams invaded her restless nights, visions of Mars bleeding into her waking hours, filling her with a panicked urgency. Shadows murmured secrets as her father spiraled deeper into his own fears, his spirit unraveling like old thread. One stormy night, the thunder crashed like an angry beast against their fragile walls. "Dad!" Lily burst into the darkness of the kitchen, her voice slicing through the electric air. "What is happening?" The whispers, Hank's warnings, the truth hung thick and heavy between them, wrapping them in trepidation where comfort used to thrive. The storm howled outside, eagerly awaiting the confessions cloaked in fear. Just as she glimpsed a glimmer of hope peeking through the fog, a piercing scream shattered their fragile peace. Panic surged, flooding Lily with adrenaline. The eerie images from Mars now encroached on their reality. What lay beyond their dim lantern light? Would courage summon them to confront the abyss or leave them forever ensnared in a shadowy curse? Lily's heart hammered in her chest as the scream echoed through the darkened house. It seemed to pierce right through the storm outside, breaking the oppressive silence. Who had screamed? Was it her father? "Dad!" She called out again, her voice trembling as she edged closer to the living room where he had last sat. The shadows, now alive, seemed to swirl around her, eager to lay claim to her fear. The air thickened, electric with dread and unspoken truths. She felt that something was wrong, peering into the fading light of the room. Her father was gone. In his place, a glimmer of panic spread across the surface of the old wood floor. Her phone buzzed again with a new message. Don't trust him. Don't go to the facility. The words slipped through her mind like a cruel whisper. The abandoned facility. What was she supposed to do? Thoughts spiraled, but she couldn't let them envelop her. With a deep breath, she crossed the threshold into the living room. The windows rattled, spitting rain against the glass as if something grappled beyond the veil of safety. She felt like a moth drawn to a flame, pulled in by something sinister. It was the cursed images, the haunting faces of Mars, and the shadows that lurked in her very own home. Could they be connected? As she made her way to the door, an unfathomable weight pressed on her chest. The flickering light barely illuminated the dusty corners, and something glinted under the couch. Kneeling down, she found a photo, the last family picture before everything changed. It showed her father smiling with his arm around her mother, unaware of the darkness spiraling upon them. That moment felt frozen in time, a reminder of innocence long lost. Her breath hitched. Where was her mother? Suddenly, another scream sliced through the storm outside. This one was different, longer, more desperate, a sound that clawed at her heart. It wasn't just a person, it felt like the very essence of horror reverberating through the night. She shot up, tearing at the door. Dad! But only silence answered her. Gathering whatever courage she had, she flung the door open. The chaotic storm greeted her like an old acquaintance, blurring the edges of the familiar street. Streetlights flickered and flickered, their paltry glow barely pushing back the creeping darkness of the night. Shadows danced in the corners of her vision, and unease clawed at her skin. There was no time to waste. The facility loomed just outside town, long abandoned and rumored to be haunted. Hank had spoken of it in fragmented sentences, alluding to a government secret buried within those crumbling walls. The whispers in the winds grew louder as she approached the outskirts of town, a chilling serenade urging her to turn back. But those dark faces from Mars crept closer, suffocating her resolve. They want me to find the truth, Lily murmured beneath her breath as she sprinted forward, dread pooling in her gut. Her phone buzzed again, startling her. Another message. Your father, he asks not who you think he is. Lily froze. Panic layered upon panic squeezed her heart. What had she discovered? Were those images of Mars reaching into her reality, reshaping the lives around her? With trembling hands, she clenched the phone and stared at the neglected path leading to the facility. Each step into the unknown felt like stepping deeper into the jaws of a nightmare. What awaited her there? And more importantly, would she still be Lily when she returned? As the entrance to the facility loomed ahead, she steeled herself, breath hitching. Something waited within, something she couldn't face alone. What dark legacy lay buried inside those crumbling walls? The storm raged on, both inside her and out, as she stepped forward, her heart pounding like a drum calling her to war. The entrance to the facility felt alive, like the gaping mouth of some great beast waiting to swallow her whole. Cold wind poured out, wrapping around her, and goosebumps prickled her skin. She hesitated just for a split second, but then guilt washed over her. Her father could be in trouble. The thought propelled her forward, feet crunching against gravel louder than ever before in the eerie quiet. Once inside, the metallic scent of rust assaulted her. Dim light filtered through cracked windows, casting sinister shadows that twisted and churned across the walls. Every corner seemed alive, breathing, whispering secrets she wasn't meant to hear. She could feel it like a pulse, a heartbeat connected to her own. Lily? Her name echoed, chilling her to the bone. It came from deeper within the facility, raw and desperate. It sounded like her father, or a trick of her mind. Heart racing, she pressed forward, clutching her phone like a lifeline. Please, Dad. Every step felt like a betrayal of the fear clawing at her insides. She dodged shattered glass, plastic wrappers ripped and fluttering like nervous birds, and a sudden thud echoed from somewhere deeper inside. Help! The voice was urgent, frayed with panic. It was a call that knotted in her stomach, a sound that carried with it an unbearable weight of despair. She turned a corner and entered what must have been the laboratory. Old machinery loomed like angry giants, and the air turned thick as she peered around. The walls were covered in peeling paper, the remnants of some forgotten project. Papers lay strewn about like discarded memories, hastily abandoned in a rush. Lily approached the nearest table, her breath hitching as she tried to make sense of the chaos. Among the scribbles, one document stood out, a diagram of a Martian landscape, stunning and alien. The words Project Genesis were scrawled at the top, then immediately crossed out, replaced with frantic notes she could barely decipher. They're coming. The truth is hidden. Trust no one. A low growl reverberated, not from her surroundings but from deep within her. Something was wrong, terribly wrong. Drawing back, she narrowly dodged an object that came crashing through the window behind her. Glass shattered around her, landing in a deadly rain. She instinctively covered her head and pivoted, adrenaline driving her to run toward the exit. Lily, the voice again, softer this time, almost pleading, reverberated off the stained walls. It echoed like a memory tugging at her heart, blurring the line between fear and familiarity. "Dad!" she shouted, panic making her voice break. A sudden chill settled over her, creeping under her skin and tightening around her throat. This wasn't just a facility. It was some kind of trap, an echo chamber of secrets meant to ensnare her, to keep her from the truth. As she stumbled back, the building groaned as if it were alive, shifting and settling like an agitated beast. Her heart raced as she caught a glimpse beyond the debris, a figure in white, blurry through the fog of dust and desperation. A sudden realization jolted her. This wasn't just her father. It was something else. "Don't look away. You need to see." The voice dripped with urgency. The shadows behind it seemed to swell, eager to consume whoever dared approach. Lily stood frozen, fear anchoring her feet to the ground as the figure lurched forward, its features becoming clearer. An unnerving mixture of familiarity and dread twisted in her gut. What truth was waiting for her as the world around her caved in and the voices, dark and ancient, whispered promises of unimaginable horrors? She gasped as the figure lunged, her vision blurred, darkness swarming, and everything crumbled around her. Would the next step drag her deeper into the truth or seal her fate altogether? Lily's heart pounded as shadows twisted around her, coiling like serpents in the dark. The figure raced forward, arms outstretched, and she finally saw its face. It was her father. It was a mask of her father's features, distorted and unrecognizable, eyes wide and pleading yet maddened. Fear clawed at her throat as she jerked back, instinctively pushing against the walls behind her. She was trapped, cornered by this thing that wore her father's likeness. "Lily," the creature rasped, the voice now a sickening blend of familiarity and something else, something sinister. "No!" she shouted, desperation coursing through her veins as she took off down the corridor, the figure's presence looming behind her. Each step echoed in the stillness, a taunting reminder of her solitary fight against forces far beyond her understanding. The metallic scent of rust hung heavy in the air, coating her tongue with bitterness. She barely registered the broken lights flashing overhead, creating a strobe-like effect. Her mind experienced all the panic without the ability to process it fully. "Help!" Her voice, raw and frayed, rebounded off the peeling walls. She needed to find her father. She had to. Turning another corner, she burst into a larger room, what once might have been an observation deck. Dust danced in the beams of fading light, but the shadows on the walls shifted erratically, as if they were alive, warning her. She scanned the area. It was a mess of tangled wires and overturned chairs, and there at the far end, something glimmered. As she stepped closer, a wave of nausea rolled over her. The table was littered with equipment and documents. They detailed bizarre studies, horrifying images of deformed creatures, and equations that seemed to spiral into delusional madness. It was clear this wasn't just scientific exploration, it was an obsession. A frantic quest for understanding at what cost. Suddenly, the darkness pulsed, like a living thing stretching toward her. The whispers in her mind grew louder, swirling into a deafening roar. "Get out! Get out now!" screamed a voice that seemed to come from the very walls. But something deeper tugged at her the glimmer. A small device lay there, half buried under the clutter. She reached for it, heart racing not just with fear but with an inexplicable need to know. As her fingers clasped around it, her phone vibrated in her pocket. She looked down, startled. A notification flashed on the screen, an emergency alert from a local news channel, warning of anomalies detected at the facility. Lily! The creature's roar sliced through her moment of disbelief, and she whipped around. It had followed her, advancing with its anguished, paralyzed semblance of her father's visage twisted into a horrific grimace of yearning and pain. The once familiar voice was no longer her guide, it was a harbinger of chaos. Terror flooded her thoughts, and she turned back to the table. The device felt heavy in her hand, like an anchor pulling her down. What was it? Could it uncover the truth behind this nightmare? Or was it a lure, meant to bind her to the horrors inside? Run! She screamed at herself and sprinted back toward the entrance, the sounds of the creature's pursuit filling her with a chilling dread. The pulsating shadows danced more violently now, thrumming with energy as if they would ensnare her before she could escape. With the whispers at her back, clamoring for her attention, each step was riddled with doubt. Just as she reached the door, flashes of light erupted around her, illuminating the darkest corners of the facility one last time. Blood-curdling screams resonated through the air, echoing a history lost to madness. She looked back, glancing one final time at the monstrous figure, the distorted mask of her father, and froze. The truth she was seeking wrapped itself tighter around her, agonizing in its intent. Would she step into the light or become just another shadow in the darkness? Lily stumbled through the door, her breath crashing in her chest like waves against a rocky shore. She burst into the hallway, eyes wide, heart racing as the echoes of that nightmarish voice chased her down the corridor. The facility felt alive around her, walls quivering as if expecting more horrors to spill forth. She had to find her way out, and fast. Lily, the voice of the creature, drifted hauntingly behind her, sharp as a knife, yet laced with an unnerving familiarity. The flickering lights cast twisting shadows that clawed at her ankles. She pushed through the urgency of fear, defending her mind against the siren call behind her. There was no time to think. Only run. Each corner she tore around seemed to pull her deeper into the belly of the monstrous structure. It was increasingly confusing, twisting and turning like a maze designed to keep her ensnared in despair. Gloomy whispers floated through the air, conspiratorial and seductive, urging her to stop, to listen. But she couldn't listen. Not now. She had caught a glimpse of freedom, an exit sign glowing faintly at the opposite end of the hall. A beacon between her and the horror. As she sprinted, a metallic clang echoed behind her. Lily's stomach dropped. She dared a glance back and saw the creature. It was closer, its grotesque face molded from the likeness of her father, stretching into a rictus of madness and yearning. Her gut twisted. It was both him and not him, a nightmarish parody, an echo of love turned hatred. "Help me, Lily!" It screeched, and something in her gut squirmed. She shook her head, forcing herself to ignore the familiar timbre. "No! You're not him!" she screamed, her voice cracking. The exit was just within reach, a distance that felt endless. She could hear the clattering of its limbs against the floor, the sharp inhales that belied its longing. A desperate fear seized her, demanding she push faster, run harder. Then, suddenly, the lights went out. Complete darkness enveloped her, plunging her into a fear deeper than she had felt before. She paused, breath hitching in her throat, feeling the shadows surround her like thick fog. The silence was deafening, oppressive. Where was the door? The exit? Was it even there? Lily, the voice came again, a grotesque murmur in her ear now, sending icy chills running down her spine. She felt the cold breath on her neck and whipped around, terror coiling around her heart. In the suffocating blackness, a soft light flickered to life, a tiny glow coming from her palm. It was the device, pulsing rhythmically. A surge of hope mingled with fear, panic clenching her. What was it? What did it do? Lily! Another cry rang out, a distant echo of her true father's voice, reaching through the horror just as she found the edge of the hallway. Dad? The light grew brighter, illuminating the shadows draping her surroundings. No longer was the figure just a silhouette, it inched closer, emerging from the darkness. But now she could see more than just the distortion. It wore an agonized expression, eyes filled with desperation. "Please, I need your help. You can free me." Her heart hammered, fighting her instinct to trust. She had to choose: believe in the comforting echo of her father's voice or surrender to the twisted plea creeping closer. The shadows shifted, swirling around her, closing in. The light from the device flickered wildly in her grip, as if sensing her dilemma. What if it was right? What if it could free him? But what if it was drawing her deeper into madness? Time stretched thin, each breath heavy with the weight of decision. And just when she thought she could either leap into that comforting glow or flee back into the dark, the device flickered violently, and she felt an electric jolt surge through her. Just as doubt peaked, shadows exploded around her, darkness pulling at her, darkness whispering promises of chaos and truth. "Lily! Don't leave me!" The scream shattered the air, cutting across her thoughts like glass. What had she awakened? And more importantly, would it consume her or give her the answers she so desperately sought? Holding on to the device tightly, she took a shuddering breath, preparing for whatever might come next. In the dead silence, a pulse echoed, reality shattering, revealing a truth more horrifying than she could imagine. The pulse throbbed in her hand, brightening the darkness like a heart beating with urgency. Lily's breath quickened as the lights flickered back to life. Shadows flickered and danced, and she could just make out the scene around her, a twisted reflection of the hallway, walls pulsating, stretching like breathing flesh. "Lily!" the grief-laden voice called again, echoing around her, reverberating through the walls and deep into her core. "Stop it!" she yelled, hands trembling as the glow of the device flickered violently. "You're not my dad!" The figure lurched forward, its eyes wide with a mix of pain and fury, growing more distinct. It lunged into the light, its twisted features almost bathed in a yearning that tore at her. The proximity made her skin crawl. "Help me break free!" It blurred in and out of focus, its body warping as if trapped between dimensions, a vessel of sorrow blending with the grotesque. Her heart hammered as sheer panic bled into every thought. Did she have the power to do anything at all? The pulsing light seemed to hold answers, though what kind was another question entirely. Without warning, the lights overhead sputtered, plunging her back into the stifling darkness. She gasped, hands shaking as the voice swelled like a dark tide, calling to her, pulling at strands of hope and despair. "Lily! Please, you must listen!" The shadows engulfed her, breathing whispers of secrets bubbling to the surface of her mind. All around, the walls appeared to thrum, alive with unseen eyes. Fear scrabbled at her throat, making her want to scream. Instead, she clenched her fists and willed her legs to move. "There's no escape, Lily!" The voice shifted, morphed into laughter tinged with cruelty. It was not just the visage of her father now, it was a cacophony of voices, echoes of the lost, mingling with the unholy howl of something far more ancient. Shadows began crawling out of the corners, extending spindly fingers toward her, drawn by her pulse. She turned, the light in her palm casting a narrow beam into the abyss of black that surrounded her, revealing fleeting images, ghostly glimpses of children, lovers, and twisted forms that once might have been human, all trapped in silent screams. Each face told a story of anguish, betrayal, and asking for redemption. Panic ignited fury in her. She couldn't just run anymore. She had to fight, but how? What power did this device hold? The echoes intensified, pulling at her, and she raised the device, its glow sputtering across the hall. "You're not real!" she shouted, trying to drown out the whispers with her own voice. "Not real?" The chorus laughed back, chilling her blood. "You're the one who's come to us. You unlocked the door. Will you accept your debt? I didn't open anything," she shouted, struggling to keep her mind intact, but doubt crept in like smoke. What if she really had awakened something that should have remained buried? With one desperate motion, she shoved the device into the shadows. "Leave me alone!" In response, the shadows seemed to pull back, momentarily electrified, arcing toward the device as if the light could defend her from the darkness. But just as quickly, they whirled together again, now coalescing, forming a great maw that threatened to swallow her whole, and then nothing. The silence broke with a loud crash. The ground buckled beneath her. Lily stumbled, almost losing her balance as reality warped, resonating through her very bones. Then pink light burst forth from where the device had vanished, flooding the corridor, fracturing the air with splintered beams. She could feel it, a tugging at her consciousness, a draw back to the truth lying beneath layers of horror. But before she could grasp it, the ground shook violently. "Lily, help me!" the voice begged, infinitely distorted. A rift opened before her, a swirling vortex into dark unknowns, promising neither hope nor escape. It beckoned from the depths with something hypnotic, a lure instinctively dangerous. What lay on the other side? And what price stilled the cries of the damned? She stood trembling, trapped between the familiar ties of love and the gnawing hint of despair. And now, the question loomed larger than her fear. Would she dare to descend into the unknown for answers she could barely comprehend? With a final glance at the rift, she knew one thing. She was out of time, and the truth was waiting, but at what cost? Panic clawed at Lily as the rift crackled with energy, alive with whispers that twisted her thoughts. The pulse in her hand continued to thrum, while shadows slithered closer, hungry for her fear. Her mind raced. If she stepped into that void, would she find her father? Or would she join the tortured souls trapped within its depths? "Do it, Lily!" The shadows hissed her name, a taunting chorus that echoed against the walls. "Set us free!" Swallowing hard, she took a brave step forward. "No! I want tea!" The ground beneath trembled again, shaking the very air from her lungs. She could feel the warmth of the light lingering in her palm, promising safety. Just a flicker of hope gave her an ounce of courage. But as she hesitated, the shadows lunged, tendrils of darkness whipping around her ankles. They tugged at her with a desperate force, dragging her toward the rift, its swirling colors now morphing into a pulsating mouth, eager to devour. With a surge of adrenaline, Lily fought against the grip of the dark. She raised the device high, squeezing it tightly until her knuckles turned white. "You think you can take me?" Her voice trembled but caught on a note of defiance. In response, the shadows recoiled momentarily, as if the device burned them. She felt the rush of exhilaration colliding with the suffocating fear. The moment stretched, a thin wire between escape and annihilation. "Help me!" her father's voice merged once more with the cacophony, threading through her resolve. The grief etched in his words it left her staggering. "Stop!" she screamed. "Stop using him to manipulate me!" The shadows hesitated, the howling quieted just for an instant, and she saw flashes of pain twist across their forms. Her heart pounded as she suddenly understood they were as trapped as she was, caught in a cycle of torment. Yet who could she trust? Every glance sent shards of doubt slicing through her mind. She imagined plummeting into the rift, destined to glide into a world that thrived on despair. "Lily!" The echoes swelled, a symphony of anguish morphing into something wretched. "Join us, become a part of us, it's liberating." "No!" she screamed again, panic rising to her throat. "I want to give in. You're nothing but a horror aimed at my heart." Just then, the device pulsed violently in her hand, and she felt a shimmer of energy coiling around her. The shadows suddenly writhed, and she sensed vulnerability within them, a flicker of remorse pushing through their sorrow. Then, the rift loomed larger, demanding to swallow her whole. Something primal in her screamed to turn back, but a deeper instinct urged her closer. It was a gamble. Could she truly reach her father, or was it simply a trap? Desperation fueled her next action. With a determined shout, she plunged her palm forward, thrusting the device into the swirling depths of darkness. Light erupted, blinding her momentarily, but she felt the draw of countless souls intertwining with hers. As the light swallowed her, she couldn't tell if it would protect her or condemn her. "Help me!" she cried out in a plea, not just for her father but for the nameless others ensnared by despair. An eternity stretched before her, and just as quickly as she felt the embrace of darkness, the ground vanished beneath her feet, leaving only an endless fall. Christ, what had she done? The rift, now a vortex of light and shadow, shifted her perception. And in that chaotic swirl, a voice burst forth, intimate yet terrifying. Welcome home. She was being pulled into something bigger than she imagined, and as the light threatened to diminish, the shadows reached for her once more. But this time, they were not empty whispers, they roared with vengeance. What awaited her on the other side? Would it be salvation or damnation? In that moment, the looming question grew even stronger. Would she find her father again, or had she opened a gateway to horrors unknown? The plunge into the void felt like being thrown into an ocean of light and shadow, swirling and twisting around her, each unlikely hue colliding into a frenzied dance of chaos. The grips of silence were shattered by distant screams, echoing through her mind as if the shadows were drawing her into their madness. Lily gasped for breath, realities whirling faster than she could understand. The echoes of her father's voice melded with sinister laughter, each note a reminder of the depths of her isolation. Lily! Save us! It weaved in and out, plastering her with a dark sense of urgency. And then it hit her, the light. The device surged in her grip and emitted a brilliant glow, as though it recognized her fear and battled against the encroaching shadows. She raised it high, as if wielding a sword against darkness. A deep breath filled her lungs until they couldn't contain it anymore, and she screamed. Get away from me! The shadows recoiled, almost sentient in their reaction. They writhed and contorted, their forms melting and reshaping, revealing countless faces marred with despair. Each visage whispered her name, a chorus woven with sorrow and longing for freedom. But what freedom waited in this world of torment? Don't listen to them, she muttered, her voice barely above a whisper, though she could hardly muster the courage. They're just lost, like me. The brightness from the device pulsated as she focused on her father's image, pushing through every doubt lodged within her heart. If I could find you, I must. The shadows shrieked, a chaotic cacophony that clawed at her resolve. Lily bent lower, the shadows grasping at her legs like the desperate hands of the forgotten. Each touch sent a shock of cold dread through her veins. She could feel their anguish pouring into her, like poison spreading through her body, blurring the lines between her pain and theirs. Just give in, they whispered, voices threading through the clamor, seductive and dreadful. Join us, Lily. There is comfort in surrender. No! She fought the urge to succumb. The pulse of the device intensified, and she turned it towards the rift. I want to become one of you. With a surge of strength, she directed the light outward, breaking through the shadows like a beacon. It splashed against the wall of darkness around her, igniting each form she could see, overwhelming each face with light. Screams erupted, and shadows hissed, the mixture of light and terror swirling into a maelstrom of chaotic cries. Suddenly, she felt as if she was being pulled into the depths of the rift. No longer floating, she was distanced from her remnant hope. The swirling mass transformed into a whirlpool, dragging her further from the ground she once knew. Release her! A new voice roared, primal and authoritative, disrupting the din.as if caught in a siphon. The darkness began to spiral away from her, unraveling like ancient fabric, and the faces faded, leaving behind an eerie silence. But the silence didn't last. From the blackness, a monstrous figure loomed, its outlines shifting violently, grotesque and unreal. Testaments of terror brimmed from its very essence. Who dares deny me? The voice growled, echoing against her very bones, cold and malicious. Lily shivered, her heart racing wildly. Was this another insufferable creature designed to wrench her soul? Or maybe this was her first true challenge, a reminder that choice lay before her. The shadows quivered and reformed, battling against the light from her device, but wouldn't he fully relent? The tension played like a horrific symphony, balancing her hope against utter dread, and in the midst of it all, her father's voice broke through again, clearer this time, though warped by pain. Lily, find me! Desperation clawed at her throat. Where are you? She shouted into the chaos, the words feeling both futile and necessary. But all that answered was the growl of the monstrous figure, those soulless eyes boring into her, waiting for an opening, ready to claim her. "Face me, little girl," it taunted, a grin forming on its twisted visage. "Lily's heart," thundered as the choice loomed above her like a guillotine. Digging deep into her last flicker of hope, she prepared for the fight of her life against this terror. But even as she summoned her courage, another thought bombarded her mind. What if her father was tied to all this? What if saving him meant being devoured by this very darkness? The shadows began to shift again, restless and hungry. And at that moment, all she could think was, what if the path she chose would lead to the true horror she feared the most? The monstrous figure lunged at her, a dark blur against the pulsing light from her device. Lily instinctively raised the glow, ready to ward off whatever leapt from the shadows. It came to a halt, glaring at her with eyes that could snuff out the sun. There was a moment of stillness, breathless. "Not so brave now, are you?" it sneered, its voice dripping with malice. Fear knotted in her stomach, tightening like a noose. "What do you want from me?" she managed to gasp, the sound swallowed by the oppressive silence around them. "Your strength, child. Your resolve. I want your light," it hissed before lunging again, an audacious strike. On instinct, she whipped the device towards it, the glow bursting forth like the dawn, momentarily bearing the grotesque form. The creature recoiled, dark hands clawing at its face, shrieking in agony. "Leave me alone!" she screamed, words barely escaping her lips as she staggered back, losing her footing. The ground beneath her was solid, yet it felt like quicksand, trying to swallow her whole. The shadows clutched at her ankles, whispering lies of comfort, promising an end to her struggle. "Your father, he suffers," the figure taunted, using that dark energy to chip away at her defenses. Images erupted in her mind's eye, her father's face, twisted in pain, pleading for salvation. "What if I could show you him? What if I could take you to him?" "No!" The word exploded out of her, infused with defiance. "I want to be baited by your tricks." The creature laughed, a sound like shattering glass. "Tricks? Oh, little girl, you're already lost. He is here, in this very darkness. All you need to do is let me guide you." Sick with dread, she felt the shadows shift closer, the darkness vibrating with an insatiable hunger. "You lie!" she shouted, desperation fueling her anger. "Just reach out," it crooned, the euphoria in its voice chilling her to her core. "I can feel your father's whispers. They echo through the void, begging for release. Join the others, it will be so much easier." Lily's heart slammed against her ribs. It was true, she could hear them, dozens of voices mingling with her father's echo, drowning in a flood of despair. Her breath became shallow as tears stung at the corners of her eyes. They were tempting her, pulling her deeper into that familiar pain. Was it really him? No more! She rose to her feet, anchoring herself through sheer will. The light from the device brightened, fighting against the shadows circling her. "You want to have me?" But darkness swirled thicker, pushing against her light, and the roars grew louder, a stomping rhythm of dread closing in. "I will have you, child. You cannot resist your fate." Just as her energy felt on the brink of siphoning away, a flash erupted in the distance. Another figure emerged, cloaked in a pure, brilliant white light, everything that the darkness was not. Lily's pulse raced. Was it a savior or another illusion? "Lily!" a voice called, cutting through the darkness like a knife. It sounded like her father, but different. This voice was stronger, filled with determination. "Don't listen to him." Instinctively, she turned toward the figure, an intense warmth washing over her, wrapped in promise and familiarity. "Dad?" The monstrous creature howled in rage, the light from the newcomer flaring fiercely. "Fight him! Choose the path of love, not fear!" But fear had already tightened its grip. Lily's body tensed as darkness snarled and lunged, inches from her face. Her instincts screamed. The glow of her device flickered, shadows circling like wolves before the kill. Could she really choose? Could she trust this light, this voice, when the abyss still beckoned her father's name? "Who will it be, little girl?" The dark figure sneered, anticipation glimmering in its eyes. "What if the answers I seek spell my doom?" She shivered, the weight of the moment hanging heavy in the air. The choice raced toward her with the velocity of her heart, and the shadows crackled with an overwhelming hunger. Lily! But what if, just what if, freeing him would drag her into eternal night? Your game is not over yet, she said, drawing strength from the light, knowing she had to make a decision. But as she stepped forward, the shadows shifted, flickering and swirling again, whispering promises laden with despair. What if it's all a lie? And then the light surged, enveloping her completely as the darkness writhed with betrayal. Would it blind her, or was it the doorway to her salvation? Choose, the chorus of shadows implored, eager to ensnare. And in that moment of impending doom, she knew she would have to confront everything she feared because the truth was worse than she imagined. Lily's heart raced as she struggled to catch her breath, that chaotic swirl around her growing ever louder, almost drowning out the last shreds of reason in her mind. With every pulse of light from the device in her trembling hand, she felt the shadows recoil, yet they pulled closer, hungry to engulf her. Stop! Just let him go! She shouted, forcing the words through a throat tight with emotion. Her voice rose above the dark whispers seeking comfort and capitulation. But the shadowy figure remained relentless, its twisted grin widening as if her defiance stirred something primal within the abyss. Doesn't your heart ache for him, for the truth? All you need is to let me in. One little step, it leaned closer, its grotesque face a mask of false empathy piercing the darkness. No! I won't join you! Lily screamed, the anger rising from deep inside her, igniting a nostalgic, suffocating warmth in her chest. She felt scattered memories pressing against her consciousness, her father helping her build model rockets, sunsets shared on the porch, laughter once echoing through their ever-silent house. They were flickering images, but they solidified her resolve. Focus on the light, find him. The new voice of her father pierced through, firm and clear, bathed in warmth. The light from the being shone vibrantly, cutting through Lily's despair like a sword. She felt hope reaching out to reclaim her, and she grasped it, refusing to let it slip away. You're not my father! Lily shouted, a mix of fierce protectiveness and desperation surging through her. You're just a shape made of darkness. The creature faltered momentarily, rage flickering in its void-like eyes, but the personal connection to her father surged over her, urging her forward. This light was real, burning brightly against the fetid gloom that fought to consume her soul. Her thoughts raced, and she thrust the device outwards, lighting the space with an illuminating radiance that cracked the dark like thunder. You have no power over me! The shadows screamed, splintering and lashing out, forming wild shapes and frantic whispers. Panic clawed at her heart as she pressed on. I will find you, Dad. I will save you! She moved deeper into the glowing light, illuminating everything around her. Shadows collapsed, retreating, smoking like defeated foes overwhelmed by a force they couldn't combat. Bursts of light cast the room into brilliance, dispelling every last shadow of doubt. And then, in the center of that enveloping glow, she saw him, her father, eyes wild yet filled with an unmistakable warmth. His silhouette stepped forward, shattering the darkness that entangled him. Lily! His voice wrapped around her, anchoring her heart. You've come for me! She rushed forward, arms flinging wide, and in that moment, everything froze. The cacophony quieted, as if the very shadows held their breath. Dad! This time it was a plea, an invocation fueled by pure love, the familiar ache of longing slashing through her. They collided, the warmth of his embrace blending with the pulsing light, all lingering darkness dissipating into nothingness. Tears streamed down Lily's cheeks, surrendering to the relief that crushed over her like a wave. We're okay now, she whispered, knowing they had broken free of the night. But even as laughter echoed between them, the dark figure writhed on the edges of fading light. It growled, You have no idea what you've released. I am the truth. No! Lily cried, fresh strength surging through her, ignited by love brighter than fear. You're nothing. You're just a fragment of who I was afraid to be. With renewed determination, she lifted the device high once more, letting the stream of light surge forth in one final radiant pulse. The darkness screamed as the light swept over it, erasing every remaining wisp. Shadows scattered, evaporating into nothingness, and the echoes of pain and despair fell silent as they retreated into the void from which they had crawled. Lily and her father stood in stillness, surrounded by a soft light that cocooned them. There, everything that had once been so heavy lifted, and the tumult reverberating in her heart began to quiet. "I thought I lost you," he said, voice filled with sincerity. "I was scared." I thought you were never coming back," she replied, warmth blooming in her chest. His eyes held accountability, and together they faced down the remnants of a storm that had lingered too long. "You saved me, Lily. You brought the light back into this world." As they stood together, the haunting landscape began to recede, revealing a horizon abundant with life, colors so vivid they were almost otherworldly. The dark depths faded, replaced with a sky painted with hope, a testament to everything they had discovered and yet wished to explore. Hand in hand, they stepped forward into the light, together at last, ready to reclaim the pieces that made them whole. A heavy burden was lifted, the ache of longing transformed into relief. With one last glance at their turbulent past, they found their way back home, heartbeats aligned, voices united. Together they turned towards their future, love surging like a tide, knowing that they had faced their darkness and emerged into the dawn. Now, before you leave us, listen closely. You need to subscribe now, so you don't miss the next thrilling journey. This is the moment to show your support. Hit that like button now to fuel our adventures in the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your reactions, theories, and what you think happened next. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Let us spread the light together.